Welcome back, everybody. Today's video is inspired by an interesting question that I was asked while at Riyadh Masters. So to the individual who asked me this question, you know who you are. I was in a deep conversation with this person, just talking about self-improvement in general, just like my motivation for self-improvement and what I'm trying to do to be better myself. And the interesting question that this person asked me was, how do you know what needs improving? And for me, it's like when people ask me questions like this, I think it's like really funny because you think like, duh, if something's bad, it needs improvement. But then if you're trying to explain the answer to somebody, I've realized that when people ask me these type of questions that I need to understand why I do things at an even deeper level to even give an answer to that question or attempt to answer this question. So today is actually a video for my Dota Diary series about answering that question because I've thought a lot about it and I think I've come to some reasonable conclusions and hopefully help you guys think about what you might want to improve on in your daily lives. So I have a simple 3-step process for you guys to self-improvement. Now let's be very clear. If I say a simple 3-step process, that doesn't mean do 1, 2, 3 and suddenly you are the most improved, amazing person in the history of the world. I'd say a lot of answers that I've realized to tough questions like this one end up being really simple, but integrating it into your life is something that takes a lot of consistent effort and hard work and like a stable mindset in order to accomplish. So let's be clear, 3 simple steps, execution, not simple, kind of simple to describe them. Bear with me. The first step is learning to gauge the amount of effort that it takes you to do things. So to give a little context, I've learned a lot about stoicism and it's been a huge part of my life in the last few years. If you've noticed change for me, that's been one of the biggest things. And stoicism in a lot of ways in this regard says to worry about the things you can control and the things you can't. And I've learned that when I'm trying to be the best at something, that results will vary. I play really well some days, I play really poorly some days, but what can remain the same always is how hard I try. And so I made a video, the 7 mindset. I actually retitled it because that's what I now refer to it as, is the 7 mindset. So when we look at the 7 mindset, what this means is I think if you're trying to actively improve on something, you are giving a 7 out of 10 effort level. 5 is like you're just going through an average work day and you're not really trying to improve anything, but you're getting the job done. 2 or 3 is like sitting on your couch, relaxing. And, all these are just arbitrary numbers to the point where I can't even tell you what they would be for you guys. But if you ever ask me how much effort I'm putting into something, I would have a very clear answer now. So the first step for me, I think if you want to know how to self-improve, is learning to gauge your own effort. So I would recommend using a template or a canvas of sorts. So for me, I use the gym. And so at the gym, I talked about this in the other video about the 7, is I worked out with Blitz, and every time I did a set, he just asked me how hard it was, scale of 1 to 10. And what you realize is that some days 20 pounds is a 7, and some days 30 pounds is a 7. What I'm trying to say is that I can gauge my effort very well, but even I am not the best at predicting what that effort is going to result in. So the whole idea of this is whatever you guys choose to use. I use gym just because I think numbers and like body feel are a great way to be able to like learn to understand yourself better. But feel free to use whatever you guys would like. So on top of this, when it comes to stoicism is like a lot of us get very frustrated on things that we can't control. I guarantee you guys, if you're really, really frustrated about something, it's something that you're upset about and you don't feel like you can do anything. Just say that if you're struggling or you're pissed at yourself, or you're just disappointed in yourself because you didn't lift as much weight at the gym today, what you can learn to accept if you work on it over time is to assess your own effort rather than the results. And you'd be surprised if you continuously do this over time and you say, my gauge for success today is not that I lifted 50 pounds, it's that I gave a 7 out of 10 effort. And some days where you're really feeling like busting your ass, really feeling it, my gauge of success is not whether I can lift 50 pounds, but it's that I gave an 8 or 9 effort today. I went even harder than I normally could go on a daily basis. Like a 7 is like, I could put active effort into this every day with this amount of effort. An 8 or a 9 means like, I could do this today because I'm really feeling it, but I could not do this every single day. right? I just couldn't. I'd burn out. My body would give in. Like, my muscles would just be too sore. So we've talked a lot about gauging effort. So when we go back to this 3-step process that I wanted to line up for you guys, this first step of learning to gauge your effort is absolutely essential. And the reason why I say it's simple is like, there it is. Learn to gauge your own effort. Simple. For me, this took about 3 or 4 months. Like, we're not going to sugarcoat it. But ever since I've gotten the hang of it, and I really do feel better about being able to tell you exactly how hard I'm working at all times, that also makes me very content and proud of how much effort I put into something rather than how good I am at it. I stopped gauging my success on the results, but more on that feeling of I did the best I could today. It seems so cliche, but you'd be amazed. So we got the first step down. First step. The second step, pay attention to when you don't accomplish what you normally do with given effort. That wasn't as short as I originally thought in my head. But what I'm trying to say is that there's going to be days where you give that 7 and it's 20 pounds instead of 30. There's going to be days where you give a 7 and instead of being your normal 4K MMR, you play like absolute dog shit and you lose 5 games in a row. And the thing is that a lot of people, including myself, former self, I like to disassociate and say my past self, you know, to own into it much easier. It's much easier to critique a third person than yourself, right? So BSJ in the past is back there. You know, I'm like, BSJ, you used to do this, man. That might be a little weird to you guys. Maybe I'm coming off as schizophrenic. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't judge that anymore. I don't judge that, hey, I only lifted 40 pounds today instead of 50. What you guys will realize is that you judge. How do I know you judge? Because I judged. And some of you may have already gotten better at this without, or known did not do this before me. And kudos to you, that's awesome. But it is amazing how destructive it is to judge yourself. To just judge a negative or positive result. The positive result gives you an ego. The negative result also hurts your ego. And then it means that overall you become a very egotistical person either way because you're worried about how you are perceived to yourself as well as others. I want you guys to approach these days, or attempt to approach these days. I can't tell you to just do it. To imagine that you can approach a day where you would normally lift 50 pounds and instead you only lifted 40. And to approach it with curiosity. To approach it with why? Why did I only lift 40 pounds today? Not like, BSJ, you're a failure, you suck, I tried so freaking hard today, it feels like crap because I only lifted 40 pounds. But, I normally lift 50. Why did I only lift 40 today? And what you'll learn is that there's always a reason. You don't just randomly suck. It just doesn't work that way. Like, you didn't just have a bad game for absolutely no reason. There is always a reason. You didn't just go to the gym, lift poorly for no reason. Like, simple answers can be, you didn't sleep very much. You were really hungry. You are on a diet, so you're in a bad mood because you changed something about your diet. You had a fight with a family member or a significant other. These are all things, like, at a basic daily level that can impact your performance. What I'm telling you guys is gauge your effort. You'll then have an understanding of what that effort produces. The second step would be, why am I not performing as well as I normally do? I've basically begun that process where every time I fall short, I skip the judgment part. I no longer go, BSJ, you fucking suck. It's, why did I suck? I did, but why? And I search for that reason. And over time, this has really helped with my awareness and understanding of why I do things. Just why I play well, why I play poorly, and just overall understanding like how to bring out the best in myself and hopefully avoid the worst in myself sometimes. And it's gonna happen anyways. Like, at the end of the day, we always have our ups and downs. I'm not like attempting to tell you guys that you'll never play badly ever again because of what I'm saying. You know, you've seen my stream. Even though I've tried to be PMA and have all this in self-improvement, there's still games where I play like absolute hot diggity dog. What I'll tell you guys is that this process in step number 2, for each individual instance, where it's like, you know, I lifted less weight today. Sometimes it's very simple. It's like, oh, I'm hungry. Sometimes you don't have to think about it for very long, but you need a sample size. You know, you need like a week. You need 2 weeks. You need 3 weeks where you're like paying attention to how much you're lifting or how well you're playing. I've seen people in my coaching sessions have like spreadsheets or Excel sheets where they're like monitoring how good they feel going into games and all this kind of stuff. Like, you can make sample sizes be the solution. And sometimes it takes weeks of like contemplation of just like, why did I do this? Like, man, it really bothers me. Like, sometimes I need to talk to somebody else about it and just be like, hey, I experienced this. Have you ever experienced this before? And like, ask them, like, what did they do if they've experienced it before? How did they deal with it? Finding someone good to talk to about that kind of shit is really helpful, by the way. A lot of the answers I've come to were not of my own. They were discussing it with somebody else, just like in this topic. I don't think I would have ever laid this out for you guys if I had not had that specific discussion and been asked that specific question, because I wouldn't have even thought to like have to articulate something like this, and then I also wouldn't have understood myself as well. Glory all around, healthy conversations. That's for another day. So one example for me, just to give you guys a simple one, was in my previous Dota Diary videos about I was playing really badly, I was getting really demoralized when a higher MMR player than me flamed me. And I realized at the time that I was getting demoralized because of that, and I was playing way worse. So after like a week or two of figuring it out, I realized that I assigned respect based on MMR, and that I treat people differently based on if I respect them or if I don't. And if I respect somebody and they critique me, I take it very hard and I try to fix it. But then I ask myself, does a person that's higher MMR than me as a person deserve to be respected for that sole reason? This could be a total online goon, you know, toxic as all hell, higher MMR than me. Do I respect that person? The answer is no. And so what that entire thing led down the rabbit hole was, what does it mean to respect somebody? I had to redefine to myself who I respected, why, and a lot of that, after that, applied to many other things too. I realized like I applied respect in a lot of incorrect ways, and that all stemmed from understanding that I was playing poorly at certain days, and those days I linked because I was demoralized by getting flamed by a higher MMR player. Interesting example, at least from my perspective. So we're gonna move on to the third step now. So I feel like the second step was all about understanding. It was observing and understanding, right? It's just like, this is me doing worse than normal. Let's attempt to understand like why that is. So the third one is establishing better habits to prevent this from happening again. So what I want you guys to think about is that these levels of effort are actually determined by your habits. So what I mean by that is, if something's habitual for you, if it's muscle memory, if it's something you just do naturally, instinctually, remember that that takes very low degree of effort, like very low. Like if you're not learning anything new, if you're just applying what you've already done and your body already knows how to do it, your mind already knows how to do it, that's very low effort. What I'm trying to get at is, if you can keep monitoring your own efforts, what you can also do when you go past the 7, when you go like 7, 8, 9, right? That you can add new habits that then make your 5 and 7 levels of effort actually produce better results. That's effectively increasing your habitual MMR, your IRL MMR, or your Dota MMR, right? You could just be like, oh, I now know, like I spent a week focusing purely on armlet toggling, and after this week, instead of having to focus on armlet toggling, I just do it. That's an example where like you'll just naturally armlet toggle now, and you can go back to having a 5 effort, and you'll be armlet toggling with a 5 effort, when the previous week it took you like a 7 or an 8 to even consider, or like correctly armlet toggle. So the reason why this third point is all about habits is because we then have to think, is something we're doing where we are performing worse, is this because of the lack of a good habit, meaning we just never really thought about it, we never established a good routine or a habit, or is it the existence of a bad habit? You know, that seems like redundant a bit, where it's like, is it a lack of a good habit or is it a bad habit? While both of these we're going to solve in a very similar way, I think that's an important understanding. It's like, I've thought about this before, I just don't do it correctly. Or it's like, I've never really thought about this at all. I just have no habit in regards to this at all. So, you know, in my notes, I put an example where it's like, lack of a good habit may be that you don't have a schedule or routine, where you just like, you don't eat, like you play 8 games of Dota in a row, similar to what I did, and you realize you didn't eat, and suddenly you're hungry and you're grumpy and you play worse. And it's like, well, the only reason I did that is because I didn't have a schedule or a routine, or I didn't go buy groceries the day before, or like every Monday, or at lunch break at work, and now I don't have food, so then I didn't eat it. So it's like, well, what can I do to establish a good habit that will make me eat around 7 p.m.? You know, this is all what actually happened to me, but it can be hypothetical numbers and situations for you guys, right? So it's like, let's build a good habit that will prevent me from having to worry about this in the future. Because if you tell yourself, I need to make sure I eat at 7 p.m., and then like every day at 7 p.m. you have to remember to eat, that's like effectively you like getting like a 7 or an effort. That's like a 7 effort to remember to eat at a specific time of day. And that's not sustainable. It's just not. Stuff like that should be very basic, theoretically, and a part of your daily routine. You know, an example of a bad habit that exists is, like I mentioned earlier, something that could be causing you to perform worse is that you don't sleep very well. Is that you could just be staying up late every night watching Twitch or YouTube videos. And maybe, you know, that's something that you feel like you don't know what else to do because you can't fall asleep. Maybe you have insomnia issues. And that's something where there's all types of ways to solve sleep problems, you know, medication's probably the last one, but, you know, stuff like being more physically active, going to the gym, yoga. I know this sounds like BS, but it's true. The days where I go to the gym, I sleep like a freaking rock. And the days I don't go to the gym, I just tend to struggle to sleep more. So all I'm trying to say is that if you're having trouble sleeping and you have bad habits that contribute to that, you first have to be like, okay, I know that these bad habits, the YouTube, the Twitch streams, 3 a.m., are contributing, browsing Reddit, to me being up till 3 a.m. and getting no sleep. What can I do to replace those bad habits? What is something that is good, healthy, that will make me fall asleep? And sometimes it takes some research, sometimes it takes some just soul searching in general and thinking about it. But overall, it's the idea that whether we lack a habit at all or whether we have a bad habit, we have to come back to square one, which is removing the bad habit and then creating a good one. And that is how our effort will remain the same, 5 to 7 or so, but the results will improve. So, brief recap. Learn to gauge your effort, understanding why your results are worse than they normally are given the effort, and then establishing good habits to make it so your effort levels remain the same, but the results slowly but surely get better. I can only hope this type of video really helps you guys. This is something I think about a shit ton, and it means a lot to me to make videos about it. So feel free to share some experiences in the comment section. It can be about Dota, it can be about life, whatever it is. Would love to hear what you guys think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.